The flight attendant's smile freezes when she sees me in seat 2A. "Ma'am, I think you're in the wrong cabin." Her voice carries that particular blend of politeness and condescension I know too well. Economy is through the curtain. I hold up my boarding pass. "First class. Seat 2A. Paid in full." She blinks, recalculates, forces the smile wider. "Of course. My apologies. Can I get you something to drink before takeoff?" "Water, please." The woman across the aisle, designer handbag, diamond studs, expression of permanent disapproval, watches this exchange with narrowed eyes. She leans toward her husband. Her whisper isn't quiet enough. "Can you believe they let just anyone in first class now? I bet she used miles." I don't respond. I've learned that silence is sometimes the most powerful response to people who need you to be less than them. I settle into my seat and close my eyes, trying to steady my breathing. Try not to think about where I'm going, about the funeral I'm flying to, about the phone call that shattered my world 3 days ago. But I can't help remembering. 14 months earlier, "You'll love the Hendersons," the agency coordinator told me. Beautiful home in Westchester. 3 children. Very generous compensation. What she meant was, they're white and wealthy. And if you keep your head down and don't cause trouble, you'll have steady work. I took the position because I needed it. Because my daughter's college tuition wasn't going to pay itself. Because my nursing degree from Kenya apparently meant nothing here. And at 42, starting over meant taking what you could get. The Henderson house was a monument to excess. 6 bedrooms for 5 people. A kitchen larger than my entire apartment. Artwork that cost more than I'd earn in 5 years. Mrs. Henderson, call me Diane, walked me through my duties with brisk efficiency. Cooking, cleaning, laundry, grocery shopping. The children's schedules. The house rules. "We value discretion," she said. "What happens in this house stays in this house." Understood. I understood perfectly. I'd heard this speech before, in different houses, from different wealthy white women who wanted to ensure I knew my place. The children were typical. Madison, 16, barely acknowledged my existence. Connor, 12, was polite in that automatic way privileged kids learn early. But Emma, 8 years old, with curious brown eyes and questions that tumbled out like water, Emma was different. "Where are you from?" she asked on my first day. "Kenya." "Where's that?" "East Africa. A beautiful country with mountains and oceans and cities full of people." "Is it far?" "Very far." "Do you miss it?" The question caught me off guard. Adults never asked. They assumed that being here, in America, in their homes, was the pinnacle of my aspirations. "Every day," I said honestly. Emma considered this. "I'd miss home too, even though Mom and Dad are always fighting now." "Emma." Diane's voice cut through the kitchen. "Don't bother Grace. She has work to do." But Emma kept coming back, kept asking questions, kept treating me like a person rather than furniture that occasionally moved. She asked about my daughter, about Kenya, about what I studied in school. "You were a nurse?" Her eyes went wide. "That's so cool. Why don't you do that here?" "It's complicated," I said. What I didn't say, because my credentials don't transfer. Because recertification costs money I don't have. Because the system is designed to keep people like me exactly where we are. 3 months into my employment, I noticed something wrong. Emma was tired. More than normal tired. The kind of exhaustion that comes from something deeper. She'd fall asleep during homework. Complain of headaches. Pick at her food. "She's fine," Diane said when I mentioned it. "Just adjusting to the new school year." But I'd been a nurse. I recognized the signs. Persistent fatigue. Unexplained bruising. Pale skin. Loss of appetite. I watched. I documented mentally. I tried to convince myself I was overreacting. Then Emma fainted. During breakfast. I was the one who caught her. Who felt how hot her skin was. Who saw the glassy confusion in her eyes when she came to. "We need to take her to a doctor," I said. "I'll call the pediatrician," Diane replied. But there was something in her voice. Something that told me she'd been avoiding this conversation with herself. Dr. Morrison examined Emma the next day. Ordered blood work. His face went carefully neutral when he read the results. "I'm referring you to a hematologist," he said. "There are some concerning markers I want a specialist to evaluate." Diane's hand flew to her throat. "What kind of markers?" "Let's not speculate until we have more information." But I knew. Years of nursing had taught me to read doctors' faces, to hear what they weren't saying. The specialist confirmed it 2 weeks later. Acute lymphoblastic leukemia. The words dropped into the Henderson house like a bomb. Everything stopped. Everything changed. I expected to be dismissed. Families going through crisis don't need housekeepers. They need privacy, space to fall apart. But Emma asked for me. Please don't send Grace away, she begged her parents. She makes me feel safe. So I stayed. I stayed through the first round of chemotherapy that left Emma retching and weak. Through the hair loss that made her cry. Through the long nights when she was too scared to sleep and her parents were too emotionally exhausted to stay awake. I read to her. Sang Kenyan lullabies my mother sang to me. Held her hand through the worst of it. Tell me about the mountains again, she'd whisper. About Mount Kenya and the snow at the top. So I'd paint pictures with words. Of my homeland. Of beauty she'd never seen but could imagine. The treatment was brutal. Emma's small body fought against both the cancer and the cure. There were infections, complications, terrifying rushes to the emergency room at 3 in the morning. I went to every hospital visit. Not as the maid. Diane stopped introducing me that way after the first month, but as the person Emma needed. The nurses recognized my background quickly. The way I anticipated needs, understood medication schedules, asked the right questions. You've done this before, one of them said. In another life, I replied. Dr. Martinez, Emma's primary oncologist, started directing information to me alongside the Hendersons. Started asking my observations about Emma's symptoms between appointments. Grace says she's been more nauseous in the mornings. Became a regular part of treatment discussions. Diane and Richard Henderson were good parents doing their best in an impossible situation. But they were drowning. Their marriage, already strained, began fracturing under the weight of medical bills, fear, and helplessness. I became the steady presence. The one who didn't fall apart. The one who believed, even when the prognosis looked grim, that Emma would survive. Why are you so sure? Diane asked me one night, both of us exhausted, sitting in the hospital cafeteria while Emma slept upstairs. Because she's a fighter, I said. And because I refused to believe God brought me in her life just to watch her die. Diane's eyes filled with tears. I don't know what we'd do without you. You'd manage, I said. But you don't have to. I'm here. 14 months. 14 months of treatment, setbacks, small victories, and crushing defeats. 14 months of watching a little girl fight for her life with more courage than most adults possess. And then, finally, the words we'd been praying for. Remission, Dr. Martinez said, smiling for the first time in months. Complete remission. The cancer is gone. Emma cried. Diane cried. Richard cried. Even Madison and Connor, who'd been trying so hard to be strong, broke down. I cried too, in the hospital bathroom, where nobody could see the depth of my relief. Emma's recovery was slow but steady. She gained weight. Her hair grew back, colorier than before, which delighted her. Color returned to her cheeks. She laughed again. The Hendersons insisted I stay on, but the job changed. I was less a maid and more a family member. I ate dinner with them, joined family game nights, became the person they called when they needed help, advice, or just someone to talk to. You saved her life, Richard said one evening. The doctors saved her life, I corrected. The doctors treated her cancer. You saved her spirit. There's a difference. Maybe he was right. Maybe we all played our parts in Emma's survival. 6 months after remission, Diane called me into her office. We want to do something for you, she said. A nurse in the first place. Why I'd chosen this hard, heartbreaking, essential work. I was good at it. Better than good. The skills I'd kept dormant for years came flooding back, refined by everything I'd learned during Emma's treatment. Dr. Martinez, who had privileges at Mount Sinai, recommended me to the department head. Within 6 months, I was offered a full-time position. Take it, Diane urged. You've earned this. But Emma is healthy, is thriving, is going to be fine. Diane squeezed my hand. Go be the nurse you were meant to be. You can still visit. You're not getting rid of us that easily. So I transitioned, left housekeeping behind, stepped back into my profession. It felt like coming home. 3 weeks ago, Emma turned 10. The party was small, intimate, just family and a few close friends, including me. Emma pulled me aside while the other kids played. I made you something. She handed me a drawing. It showed 2 figures, one small, one tall, holding hands under a bright yellow sun. At the bottom, in careful crayon letters, Grace saved my life. Now I want to save lives too. When I grow up, I'm going to be a nurse. I held that little girl and cried. Cried for everything we'd survived together. For the future she almost didn't have. For the unexpected ways God writes our stories. You can be anything you want, I whispered. Anything at all. I want to be like you, she said simply. The phone call came 3 days ago. My daughter, calling from college. Her voice strange, hollow. Mama? It's Grandma. She's gone. My mother. Dead from a stroke. Sudden. Unexpected. Devastating. I had to go home. To Kenya. To bury the woman who raised me. Who sacrificed everything so I could have opportunities she never did. The Hendersons helped me book the flight. First class. You're not sitting in economy for 14 hours, Richard insisted. Emma made me promise to come back. Always, I told her. I'll always come back. Now I sit in this first-class cabin, flying toward grief, while strangers make assumptions about who I am and whether I belong here. The woman across the aisle is still staring, still whispering. Her disdain is palpable. I close my eyes, try to find peace, try to prepare myself for what's coming. The plane fills around me. I hear the usual first-class sounds, expensive luggage being stowed, champagne being poured, people settling into the privilege they're accustomed to. Then I hear it, a small gasp, a familiar voice. Grace. I open my eyes. Emma is walking down the aisle, Diane behind her. They're seated 3 rows back. A surprise trip to Paris, apparently, that they'd mentioned weeks ago, but I'd forgotten in the fog of grief. Emma rushes to me, wraps her arms around my neck. I didn't know you'd be on this flight. Where are you going? Kenya, I say softly. My mother passed away. Oh, Grace. Diane's hand covers her mouth. I'm so sorry. Why didn't you tell us? Everything happened so fast. Emma's eyes fill with tears. She climbs into my lap like she's still 8 years old, still sick, still needing comfort. I'm sorry about your mama. I hold her. This child I helped save. This beautiful, healthy, vibrant child who shouldn't be here, but is. The woman across the aisle is watching with an expression I can't quite read. Confusion, maybe. A recalculation happening behind her eyes. The flight attendant returns with my water. Sees Emma in my lap. Smiles genuinely this time. Will your daughter be joining you? Or is she ticketed elsewhere? Before I can correct her, Diane speaks up. Emma, honey, let Grace rest. Come sit with me. But I want to stay with Grace, Emma protests. It's okay, I say. I'm okay. Emma reluctantly returns to her seat. Diane pauses beside me. We'd like to pay for you to upgrade your return flight, she says quietly. And if you need anything, anything at all, while you're there, please call us. You've done enough? I say. We'll never do enough, Diane replies. Not for you. The plane begins to taxi. The safety announcement plays. I stare out the window at the tarmac, at the city I'm leaving behind, at the life I've built here. Then the pilot's voice comes through the speakers. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Captain Reynolds. We'd like to welcome you aboard Flight 447 to London, with continuing service to Nairobi. We're expecting smooth flying conditions and should have you there right on schedule. He continues with the standard announcements. Flight time, altitude, weather conditions. Then his voice shifts. Becomes less formal, more personal. Before we take off, I'd like to acknowledge someone special on board today. Grace Kamau, traveling in first class, is flying home to Kenya to lay her mother to rest. Grace is a pediatric oncology nurse at Mount Sinai Hospital, where she's known for her exceptional care and dedication to her patients. My breath catches. Grace's own journey has been remarkable. She came to this country as a trained nurse, but like so many immigrants, faced barriers that forced her to start over. She worked for years as a housekeeper, never complaining, never giving up on her dream of returning to medicine. The woman across the aisle is staring at me now, really staring. During that time, Grace helped save the life of a child in her care, not through nursing skills initially, but through the simple act of paying attention, of noticing what others missed, of advocating when no one else would. I turned to see Emma pressed against her window, tears streaming down her face, waving at me. That child survived cancer because Grace refused to stay silent. And Grace's courage inspired the family she worked for to help her reclaim her nursing career. Today, she saves lives every day at one of New York's finest hospitals. The captain pauses. When he speaks again, his voice is thick with emotion. Grace, that child you saved is my niece. Emma is my brother's daughter. Our family will be forever grateful for everything you did and everything you are. We're honored to have you on board today, and our hearts are with you as you make this difficult journey home. The cabin is silent. Then someone starts clapping. One of the flight attendants. Then another passenger. Then another. Soon the entire first-class cabin is applauding. The woman across the aisle has tears running down her face. She mouths, "I'm sorry." I nod. Accept her apology. Choose grace over resentment. Emma unbuckles and runs back to me. The flight attendant doesn't stop her. "He's my uncle," she whispers. "Uncle Dave. He wanted to do something special for you." It was very special, I manage. The flight is long, but not lonely. Passengers introduce themselves. Share their own stories. Tell me about their mothers, their losses, their journeys. The woman who judged me, her name is Patricia, tells me about her sister, a nurse who died of COVID-19. "I should have known better," she says. "Should have seen you." I'm ashamed. We all have biases, I say. What matters is what we do when we recognize them. She nods. Sits with that truth. When we land in London for the layover, Captain Reynolds comes back to speak with me personally. "Emma talks about you constantly," he says. "You're her hero." "She's mine," I reply. "She taught me that the worst circumstances can reveal the best in people. That love transcends employment. That family is who shows up." "Richard told me you're considering a position at St. Jude's," he says. "I hope you take it. The world needs more nurses like you." I am considering it. A significant promotion. More responsibility. A chance to impact policy, to change systems, to help more children like Emma. I'm thinking about it. I say. "Think yes," he suggests. "People like you. People who've survived what you survived and stayed compassionate. You're exactly who should be leading." The flight to Nairobi is quieter. Reflective. I sleep some. Cry some. I remember my mother's hands, strong and capable, working long hours as a teacher. I remember her pride when I got into nursing school. Her tears when I told her I was leaving for America. "Go," she'd said. "Chase the dream. Make us proud." I did, Mama. In ways neither of us expected. The dream didn't look like I thought it would. It was harder, longer, more painful. But it was also richer, deeper, more real. I didn't just become a nurse again. I became the kind of nurse who remembers what it's like to be powerless, who sees people the system overlooks, who advocates fiercely because I know what silence costs. We land in Nairobi at dawn. Kenya welcomes me home with familiar heat, familiar smells, familiar beauty that makes my chest ache with longing and loss. My sister meets me at the airport. We hold each other and weep. "Mama was so proud of you," she says. She told everyone about her daughter, the nurse in America. "I should have come home more," I say. "You came when you could." She understood. The funeral is beautiful. Hundreds of people come, former students, colleagues, friends, family. They share stories of my mother's generosity, her wisdom, her fierce love. I speak about her sacrifice, about how she worked multiple jobs to pay my school fees, about how she believed in me even when I didn't believe in myself. She taught me that dignity isn't determined by your job title. I say, that character matters more than credentials. That how you treat people when you have nothing to gain reveals who you really are. After the service, people line up to greet me. Many remember me as a child. Some remember my mother telling them about my work in America. An elderly woman, one of my mother's closest friends, takes my hand. "Your mother said you were a maid in America," she says. But I told her, "That girl is a healer. No matter what they call her, she's a healer." Was I right? Yes, I say. You were right. I stay in Kenya for 2 weeks. I visit my mother's grave daily. I sort through her belongings, finding letters I'd sent over the years, carefully preserved. Finding photos of Emma that I'd mailed, displayed prominently. I find her journal. The final entry, written the day before she died. "Grace called today. She sounded tired but happy. She's helping children survive cancer. This is what I prayed for, that she would use her gifts, that she would make a difference, that she would know her own worth. My prayers have been answered. I hold the journal and let myself break. Let myself grieve fully. Let myself feel everything I've been holding back. And then, when the tears finally stop, I feel something else. Peace, purpose, clarity about what comes next. I return to New York on a Tuesday. Emma and the Hendersons meet me at the airport with flowers and hugs and welcome home signs. "Did you decide?" Richard asks. "About St. Jude's?" "I did," I say. "I'm taking the position." Emma squeals and hugs me tighter. My mother spent her life teaching children. I tell them. Now I'll spend mine saving them. It's what she would have wanted. It's what I want. 6 months later, I start my new role as pediatric oncology nurse coordinator at St. Jude's Children's Research Hospital. I develop protocols, train staff, advocate for patients and families who don't know how to advocate for themselves. I remember what it's like to be dismissed, to be overlooked, to have people assume you don't belong. And I make sure no family in my care ever feels that way. Emma writes me letters at my new position in Memphis. She's thriving, 12 years old now, cancer-free, planning to volunteer at the hospital when she's old enough. I'm going to be a nurse like you, she writes. I'm going to help kids like me. I'm going to notice when something's wrong, and I'm not going to stay quiet. You taught me that. I keep her letters in my desk drawer. On hard days, I read them. They remind me why dignity matters, why seeing people matters, why speaking up matters. They remind me that I belong anywhere I choose to be, not because of where I sit on a plane, but because of who I am and what I've survived and what I choose to do with both. The world tried to tell me I was just a maid, but I knew differently. I always knew. And in the end, the truth always finds a way to be heard, sometimes quietly, in a child's recovery, sometimes loudly, over an airplane speaker, sometimes simply, in a life well lived. That's the truth they can't take from you, no matter how they try. You are who you are, not who they say you are. And that is enough.